The last time you and I sat in these chairs, it was 2 years ago. You were still negotiating the sale of SkyBridge. You hadn't yet entered the White House, and Ryan Lizza hadn't written his story about you in the New Yorker. A lot has happened since then, hasn't it?
Well, did you catch my opening remarks? I said, I've had a very uneventful 2 years. I don't know about you people. This is the last time you've been to the SALT conference. But listen, the last 2 years is a big learning experience, Eric. You know, what I do tell people, particularly when I speak in colleges, don't let your pride and ego get ahead of you. You know, when I was fighting it out with Reince Priebus and Steve Bannon, I was originally supposed to be the president's OPL director. You and I were talking 2 years ago. They had blocked that position on me. And I let my pride and my ego get the better of me. And so when that happens, your emotions go high and your intelligence goes low. And so it's a cautionary tale for people in their careers, their professional life, but also in the way they invest and the way they deal with their families.
Anthony, the standoff over the Mueller report is like nothing Washington has seen since the days of the Watergate scandal. Mm-hmm. Who's abusing power here? The Congress that says it's exercising a constitutional right of oversight, or the administration that wants to exert and assert an expanded interpretation of presidential authority?
Okay, so I mean, it's a very complicated question, but I'm gonna answer it this way. I think that there is a fever in Washington right now that is very unhealthy for the entire American system, and so I think they're both a little wrong, frankly. I think that they were very wrong in the beginning, because I would have said to you 2 years ago there was no Russian collusion during the campaign. The Mueller report more or less says that. I read all 448 pages of that thing. The obstruction issue, I'm writing an op-ed right now for the USA Today, and I'm basically saying that the president, if you know the president, it wasn't his intent to obstruct justice. It was an expression of his frustration that he didn't commit a crime that they were investigating him for. And if you look at the detailed analysis inside the Mueller report, they also draw that conclusion. So at the end of the day, in my opinion, Attorney General Barr is correct in terms of what he has said about the Mueller report. But here's what we've done now in our society, Eric. We've politicized and weaponized our agencies and the criminal process. And by the way, if Secretary Clinton became the president, they would have been going after her. They would have been investigating her for her emails and the foundation. And that, too, would have been a disaster. So to me, I think it's an indictment of both parties. I wish both parties would knock it off. If you want to beat the president, he's obviously not going to get impeached. So this kabuki theater that you're doing inside of Washington right now is not going to have the effect that you want it to have. So why don't you focus on policy, fix the immigration situation, infrastructure, education, et cetera, then do the kabuki theater in Washington that everybody hates. That's my issue. So I think they're both a little wrong, frankly.
Here's another question that I think you can answer. American democracy wasn't just built on law, it was built on norms. And do we really want a system in which there are no norms? There's only law, and all the major fights have to go to the Supreme Court?
Yeah. I think it's unfair. I think if you go back to Bush versus Gore, when you go back to that election and the contention around that election, and ultimately what some people feel was the politicization even of the Supreme Court, you're 20 years past that, and we've exponentially ramped up the vitriol and the animosity towards each other. And so you are also correct. I would agree with what you're saying. You want us to go back to some normal situation, but that means that the fever has to break on both sides. It's not a one-sided fever.
I'm not suggesting it is.
Would you agree with that? I mean, I just think the Republicans are a little off-kilter. I think the Democrats are a little off-kilter. And the good news is the stock market loves this sort of activity, because they're like, okay, these people are not doing anything, and so that's great for the stock market, okay? And the president's economic policies have actually worked. And so at the end of the day, market activity, notwithstanding the tweet storm over the weekend that caused the correction, by and large, the market activity has been very good since the inauguration.
Speaking of the market, does the president's approach to dealing with the Fed make any sense to you?
Well, again, it's his personality. So I'm not here to say that I don't understand what he's doing and why he's doing it. But if you're asking me about normative standards, I think we've had since the Fed's inception in 1913, we've had this standard and protocol that the president wouldn't interfere politically with what the Fed is doing. I would like to maintain that standard.
You'd like to go back to that, because that's not what's happening now.
I would, because and by the way, what the president would challenge is, well, I've been right. Look at the economic growth and look at the 1.6 inflation number. They raised rates too fast last year. They slowed down the economic train, the Trump train of economic growth. And I get all that, but I just think it's a dangerous place to go, because once you politicize and you create a codependency between the Federal Reserve Chairman and the President, you'll spook markets. And so I don't want that. I want American markets to be what they are to the world, which is the operating standard of excellence in the global society.
Do you think the president will let Jay Powell serve out his term as Fed chairman? You do?
I do. Yeah, I think the president's a very smart guy. The president knows that would be a economic, apocalyptic market disaster. I really believe he knows that. So he can jawbone about it. He can express his frustration, but he's a very common sense oriented guy. When you go to what the president is doing, you say, okay, wow, that's really good common sense policies. When you go to how he's doing it, you need the Trump decoder ring. You need to turn the ring a few times and okay, I understand what he's doing and why he's going in that direction.
Of the three people who appear to be top candidates for the Fed now, Paul Winfrey, Craig Phillips, and Judy Shelton, do you have a preference?
I don't, and I have to confess to you that I don't know those people very well. But what I do like about those people, they're inside the bandwidth of academic standing. And so I think
that could get them nominated.
Yeah, that could get them nominated. They're more in the conventional zone than Herman Cain or Stephen Moore, who's a great friend of mine. He's here at the conference right now. He's, frankly, one of my business partners. I have a great respect for him. I think he would have been great on the Fed. But I understand why it was so hard for that to happen for him.
Speaking of things that are happening at the conference here, Anthony, General Kelly last night told David Rubenstein that Jared and Ivanka needed to be kept in line at the White House.
Yeah.
Did you see that as a problem when you were there?
I didn't. You have to remember, I was only there for 11 days or 954,000 seconds. I like Jared and Ivanka. The general and I didn't know each other. You missed this event last night, but what I said is, in the IPO of my friendship with John Kelly, it didn't trade very well in the IPO, but the stock is rising right now in heavy volume. So I look forward to having that interview with him today at 6 p.m.
What Democrat do you think could give President Trump a run for his money in the election?
And again, this is not a partisan evaluation. This is me speaking as an objective person. $11 billion under management. I have to analyze it critically and objectively. I think that the person that would give him a challenge would be Vice President Biden, but I think it's going to be very tough to beat the president in a rising economy, and I do predict that the economy will still be on the rise, Erik, through the November 2020 cycle.
You recently said some nice things about Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
Now, but you appear to have kind of walked that back a little bit by saying, no, I'm still with Trump 2020.
No, because here's what happens. Okay, you got the White House shenanigans, right? Like
somebody calls and rips you a new one?
No, here's what happens. Washington is on spin cycle, okay? New Yorkers are on rinse cycle, okay? So I like telling people what I really think, So I like the mayor. I think the mayor's a great communicator. I'm a gay marriage proponent. There are family members of mine that are gay. I think they should have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness like straight people. I think this is a bunch of nonsense, and I think our children are so over this thing. Why are we even debating it now? And so my tweet about the mayor was, I'm very proud of him that he's standing out there as an openly gay person, a combat veteran, married to somebody that he loves, and God bless him. Let him live his life in the spirit of what the individual should do in our society, is live freely. But there's, nonsense and shenanigans. Oh, my God, Scaramucci's going to support or endorse a Democratic candidate. That's not the case. So I wasn't walking back anything I said about the mayor. I like what he's doing. I like the openness of what he's doing, but I clearly support the president, and I would like to see him get reelected. I don't know how you could be any more clear or more blunt than that, Erik.
Well, I think we've sorted out any debate.
But if you want one of my Trump decoder rings, okay, I'm going to be putting them on sale in the over there by that Rolls-Royce SUV. I'm going to be putting them on sale tomorrow. Okay, maybe I'll give you one for free.
No, Anthony. I have to exercise my journalistic independence and buy the decoder ring with my own money.